Hello there, here I am again. My second attempt at recording this video after Amazon ruined my first recording by trying to deliver the Big Finish Gareth Roberts box set to me and failing because they're gone by the time I actually got to the door. So I'm fairly annoyed at the moment. Let's see how that conveys into this video, which is going to be about the 7th Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, who is my childhood Doctor. I don't want to spoil the whole video here, but I'm enough of a fan, but I also have a Sylvester McCoy mug. I can drink out of the Doctor's head any time that I like. So in terms of my childhood, I remember Colin Baker's coat, but absolutely nothing about any of his stories. So my first proper Doctor Who memory is the bit in Delta of the Bannermen when they use a real police box, because that really confused me at the time when I was a kid, because obviously I didn't know what a police box actually was. That bit still confuses me now as an adult, because why is it in the middle of a field? Could you really call the White House and get put through to the President from a police box? It's a very odd sequence, but after that, Dragonfire is the first story I remember properly all of. Don't remember Remembrance of the Daleks, oddly enough, even though that's one of the 4 that everybody remembers who is my age. The other 3, of course, being Doctor Who and the Clowns, Doctor Who and Bertie Bassey, and Doctor Who and Thundercats. But after Remembrance, I can remember seeing every Sylvester McCoy story as it went out, and of course I've seen every Doctor Who story as it's gone out since then, or 100 odd episodes that have been made over the last decade plus. So this is the start of my journey into Doctor Who fandom. And of course, generally, your first Doctor is supposed to be your favourite, so maybe I'm going to be very biased in this video, but for most of my childhood, because I'd have been coming up to my 8th birthday, maybe just after my 8th birthday when the show ended. So for most of my actual childhood, about sort of influential years, there wasn't a current Doctor. We had a few videos of things like Earthshock, of a deadly assassin and an unearthly child, and there were the BBC Two repeats, and then the UK Gold repeats. So there were a lot of different Doctors flying about in my young years, but man, I don't think I ever really thought of Sylvester McCoy as the current one, even for most of that time. So hopefully I have not completely imprinted on him as the proper Doctor, so this won't be a completely insane myopic video. Of course, Sylvester McCoy, he's not as hated by the general public as Colin is, but he is generally seen as the other shit one. Incredibly unfairly, of course. The general fan consensus is that his era started off quite bad, then got better as it went along until it was quite good again at the point the show was cancelled. I would slightly disagree with that. I mean, before season 24, the show is in a complete mess. Worst received season ever. Teetering on the brink of actual cancellation again. Certainly there would not, and indeed wasn't when it eventually happened, be an outcry as there was when they tried to do it at the end of season 22. They could have killed Doctor Who quite easily after Trial of the Time Lord. I don't think anybody would have cared, and even fans would have said, the show isn't any good anymore, how could you not cancel it now? Certainly hard to imagine things like the New Adventures launching off the back of Trial of the Time Lord, certainly. So you had a producer who was desperate to leave, you didn't have a script editor, you had a first story that was commissioned from Pip and Jane Baker, and the new script editor brought in had even less experience than Eric Say would have when he started. He came right off the BBC writing course, I believe. So everything was lined up for season 24 to get the show killed. And to a certain extent, I think the only reason they did 3 years as Sylvester McCoy is that it was less effort to just let Sylvester McCoy do his 3-year contract, but it was to cancel it and risk having to pay him out for work he hadn't done, because of course Colin Baker, thanks to his legal training, made sure he got paid for every episode he was supposed to have made. Because when he was supposed to be doing the original season 23, he followed the correct equity rules to get paid for each of those episodes. Apparently what he had to do was phone up the BBC every day he was supposed to be working and offer himself as available to work, and he got paid. So that's not bad. For 18 months gardening leave, I suppose. But obviously I don't think they'd have wanted to do that again. So it was just like less effort to keep the show going. I quite like season 24. Yes, I've said it. Time of Varani, it's probably my favourite Pip and Jane Baker script, actually. Their eccentric dialogue is a lot more toned down in it. Possibly down to Andrew Cartmell's brief influence, so you really get to do much to that script once it came on. It's fast, it's fun, it is children's BBC level television. But at that point, I think that's exactly what Doctor Who needed. The general public had given up on it, the fans had given up on it and had the knives out for it. The only thing really left to do was to appeal to an entirely new audience of young children and bring them into the show. And it worked, you know. It's good kids TV. I think if you were 6 watching that, you'd have enjoyed it a lot. Because it looks good, it's funny. Sylvester McCoy, everybody says he got better once he became more serious, but he's more serious in his story than people give him credit. There's a nice whimsical edge to his performance, in amongst sort of slapstick, and even a melancholy quality that I think he does very well throughout his entire times there. So, yeah, it's fun. Paradise Towers, though, the first script Cartmell was in complete control of, is where the change happens, and it happens surprisingly quickly. Andrew Cartmell is somebody it's quite easy to take the piss out of now, because in interviews and in his book, he comes over as being quite full of himself. The fact he also looks and sounds exactly like Mike Reed, not the Senders bloke, but the former Saturday Superstore host and current racist Mike Reed. It makes it hard to take him seriously. But really what the show needed at that time was an egotist. Somebody who was going to come in and say, this is a job that's a dead-end job. This is a job I'm going to use to launch my career. I'm going to take down the government with this job. A fantastic quote that it only took the press 20 years to notice and make a fuss out of. And unlike Saward, Cartmell is willing to work with and cultivate new writers, including, of course, later on in Mark Platt, someone who had been trying to get on the show for years, which makes Saward's moaning about not being able to get new writers even more ludicrous. So he's got an idea of how he's going to make the show brilliant. He's got the desire to work with fresh, eager, keen new writers. And really, for the first time since Terence Dicks was script editor, it's not just a case of, you have writers where you use one of them every year. Maybe rewrite their script if it's not good enough. There's an actual effort to create a team. Almost of the American TV model of the old writers' room. These are people who work together, socialise together, they brainstorm together. Especially Cartmell, Ben, Mark Platt and Ian Briggs. They seem to have been a really close-knit group of people, and that works to the show's advantage almost immediately. Paradise Towers is the best story since Caves of Androzani. Not a high watermark, I think you'll agree, but it's such a huge step in the right direction. Oddly enough, it's for production on that one, we let it down more than scripting, because some of the casting decisions are very odd, and it doesn't quite match the script, what the script is trying to do. But then you get Delta of the Bannermen. People who dislike Delta of the Bannermen are idiots. If you don't like Delta of the Bannermen, turn this video off now. I'm not carrying on until you turn it off. I'll know if you're still watching. Yeah, I think they've gone. It's unlike any other Doctor Who story that's been made previously. It's fun and light and whimsical and clever. Perfect 50s romp. And it feels like Doctor Who is back when you're watching Delta and Bannermen. Sadly, Dragonfire is not as good. That's one where the production really does let it down, because none of the sets are convincing, and again you have odd directorial choices, like how Sylvester McCoy is the only person bothering to act like he's walking on ice. That really strange cliffhanger. But that story still, and hanging off a cliffhanger, how brilliant was it? Finally, 26 years later, we got an explanation for that it was Richard E. Grant being a dick to the Doctor. And if you'd have said to me beforehand, what is one of the things we're going to have in the 50th anniversary year of Doctor Who? A flashback to the Part 1 cliffhanger of Dragonfire would not have appeared on my list of likely things we were going to see. So I thought that was hysterical and brilliant. What the story does have is Ace. A hugely, hugely important step in the evolution of the show, because I've said before, too often, the quality of the companion is just down to the actress. Even a companion who starts off really solid, like Leela, quickly suffers from quite bad writing, is Louise Jameson, who constantly struggles to make her good. And there's so few companions where it's not the actress doing all the legwork. Romana being the main exception to that. And that's a shame, because especially in the era where you've only got one companion, because that means your TV show only has 2 lead actors. Not being able to treat them both well and give them both good material, that's a very frequent poor failing of a lot of Doctor Who, right up to Mel. So if that can't Mel again, he's clearly thought we're not just going to have another Bonnie Langford. However much I love Bonnie Langford, that you couldn't have gone down the generic screamer companion route again. You needed someone who could play well off McCoy. And she does. And there's thought put into a character, and there's an intended arc, and the writers are talking to each other again, So there's consistency, and everybody moans about her unreal slang, and yes, she doesn't talk like a teenager in 1987 would. I don't know what people expect. Did they really think she was going to come on and go, "Yo, motherfuckers," every other line? Probably not. This will probably have always with writing angry teenagers for television, especially from a bunch of middle-aged, upper-class blokes doing it. But that's only a huge problem in Dragonfire, where the dialogue's frequently unconvincing. There are moments in all of the other stories, especially getting online, but it's generally just Dragonfire where that's an issue, and Sophie Aldrin's less assured in her performance in Dragonfire. It's a bit staging. But, it's a first story. From Remembrance of the Daleks, which is sort of a big, suddenly Doctor Who has relaunched itself as great television again moments. If the BBC had put that on in a decent time slot, promoted it properly, season 25 would have been hugely, hugely successful. And that's largely down to how McCoy and Aldrin play off each other. And what I particularly like about Ace is that, she's an action heroine, basically. And too often, when men writers do strong, kick-ass, to use a poor term, women, they fall into certain cliches for leather catsuits, for high kicks, judo, for big guns, for sort of what a masturbating 13-year-old boy would think of as a strong woman. And even Leela had some of that with her ridiculously skimpy leather costume. Ace, on the other hand, avoids a lot of that. She dresses sensibly. She's not just a badass fighter. She's got a charm to her, and a sweetness, a likability when she gets into punch-ups. It's like how a teenager would fight. It's not like great big gratuitous action scenes with kung fu in. She has more layers and dimension to her than that, and sadly, even today, that still feels like a much fresher, more interesting and more progressive character than you still see in a lot of television and film. I am absolutely amazed that Sophie Aldred was not my first big TV crush, because I was the right age. And looking back now, it'd be great to say that was one of my first crushes, because she's such a strong, well-written female character. You feel quite good. I didn't go for the obvious skimpy dress women that you had on TV. No, I went for this great character. Sadly, she wasn't, because I'm an idiot. For the record, I think my first proper TV crush was Philippa Forrester. Mainly because I remember being really upset that she didn't get the broom cupboard gig and they gave it to Toby Ansis instead, even though she was clearly the better presenter. But it's not my poor taste there. Aldred is brilliant, and how she and McCoy work together is brilliant. And Remembrance of the Daleks is brilliant, you know. The worst thing you'd say about it is that the Dalek props themselves look quite... Well, the grey ones look old and tired, and the white ones look like they're made of flimsy plastic, and they wobble all over the cobbles. It's quite bad that they can go upstairs, but they can't deal with uneven surfaces. Other than that, it's such a fantastic story. In season 25, then you've got the Happiness Patrol, which is probably the cheapest looking McCoy story, because what they're trying to do with the sets doesn't quite work, but the script is so good, and so, again, thoughtful and intelligent, and people who do not like the Candyman, you can turn off this video now as well, because you embarrass me and all mankind. He's such a great character. Hello, Candyman! I got that quote wrong there, that's embarrassing. But fantastic, angry, funny story. I'll skip over Silver Nemesis, because I'll come back to that in a bit. Again, Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Looks great, is funny, is smart. Better than anything you would expect from Doctor Who at that point, especially a Doctor Who story had to film in an actual tent because of the asbestos around the television centre. And if that, sadly it's not on the DVD, but if you watch the documentary that was on the video of Silver Nemesis, that is on YouTube, about how that programme was made, filmed at the time, you could see how everybody at the close of season 25 was basically in the middle of a nervous breakdown, especially Paul Sylvester McCoy, where he sat there talking about how they have no rehearsal time for the last two stories made in that season because of the asbestos scare, how the Troubles have made it a frequently difficult production anyway, much harder, and he sat there going, if we had more time, if we had more money, we could do so much better. And famously, of course, he was ready to leave at the end of season 26, and I would imagine that is a point where he would be making that decision, because he looks like he would quite like to leave the show due to all that difficulty. But of course, I'm not talking about what happened there, but I get to the end of season 26. But Silver Nemesis is the weak link in not just season 25, but in the last, maybe the whole McCoy era, really, once you make allowances for time with Rani. It's really odd, when it's around so many good stories, that this script is rubbish. And suffers quite badly as well from what is Cartmell's big flaw, is the main side of his inexperience as a script editor. Episodes being too long, too much material, and then not always making the right choice about what to cut out. I think people exaggerate what a problem that is. I think Silver Nemesis and Curse of Fenric are the only stories to actually suffer from it. But I just want to know who sat there in the editor's suite going, we have to cut something out, we have to cut something out. Should we leave in all these bits that explain the plot? Or should we leave in the nonsensical celebrity cameo from a celebrity nobody has ever heard of? Or leave in the nonsensical celebrity cameo from a celebrity that nobody's ever heard of, even though you could cut that out so neatly. totally bizarre. And it's such a shame that the DVD only has a broadcast version on it rather than the longer version that was done for video, because even though it's quite masochistic, sit there watching more Silver Nemesis, at least you get those nice plot beats back in and it flows a bit better. Yeah, overall, Season 25, great. Season 26, even better. You know, Battlefield is the weakest story in Season 26. And Battlefield would have been in the top 2 or 3 stories of every Peter Davison and Colin Baker season. That's how good the show has become now. But that is the low quality threshold. There's still Battlefield's a fun. It's romp. It's the last romp of the series, really. Because the other 3 stories of that season are quite dark, more about the Dark Doctor. I don't know if anything might be better be showing a little later in the season, sort of break up, and give a variety of tone there. But yeah, it's fun. Not all the effects work, but the Brigadier's fantastic, the new Brigadier's fantastic. Got some great ideas. Ben is incredibly imaginative writer, as anyone who's read his more recent novels can tell, and all this out of time stuff. And it's also incredibly clever in that it subverts something that had quite become a cliche at that point. Because, you know, how people remember the McCoy era, well, at least in fandom, is that he was a manipulator Doctor who was always setting plans in motion, playing chess across 1,000 boards, and always knew what was going on. And I think to an extent that's exaggerated. In stories like Remembrance, The Greatest Show of the Galaxy, and Silver Nemesis, even when he's got a plan beforehand, the plan very quickly goes wrong, and he has to improvise, and he doesn't know everything that's going to happen. I mean, Curse of Fenric, obviously, you know, if he almost loses because he doesn't have enough sense to tell Ace what's really going on, so she blurts out the final chess move. So, you know, that is a bit exaggerated, that is a perception, but Battlefield subverts that by him going into a story where he has no future knowledge of it, but it shows him gaining how he gets his future knowledge of one of his future adventures, and is instead being played by a future Doctor. That's very clever, and, you know, much smarter than what a lot of the books would do with the Doctor after that, they would play the manipulated Doctor to the hilt. But yeah, it's great fun. Shame he didn't kill the Brigadier at the end, because that would have been a fantastic death scene for him, and very appropriate as well, him saving the world. If any character deserved that blaze of glory, it is Lethbridge Stewart. But yeah, lovely story. I always get the broadcast order of season 26 slightly mixed up in my head, so Venice Ghostlight, again, you know, studio bound, great performances, great ideas. People complain about how it doesn't make any sense, but it does. You know, things do get explained once. Interestingly, people do say, oh, it's such a shame we didn't do an extended version because of the deleted scenes would make more sense of it. But the deleted scenes, or at least the ones on the DVD, don't really add anything. They're all sensible cuts. They don't really explain anything else. You're not really missing anything there. Unlike in The Curse of Fenric, of course. Maybe it's because I first saw that on the video, but when I eventually saw the broadcast version, more out of curiosity than anything, I think that is the one that really suffers from having too much. There's a lot of good material get cut out, but the editing of the TV version is really odd. Characters sort of jump from place to place, and it's a bit of a mess. It's still very watchable, and it's got enough going on to keep you interested, but the movie version on the DVD is considerably better, paced better, flows better, has essential scenes put back into it. I mean, I think the scene where the Doctor talks to the Chief Herbivore and sort of brings it round to his way of thinking, I don't think that's in the broadcast version, if I remember correctly, and that's sort of key to understanding the whole final, because otherwise it turns on Fenric without any real reason as to why it should. And yeah, there's a couple of silly bits in Fenric, like Ace weirdly not working out that that baby must be her mother because it's got the same name as her mother, and the grandmother, the baby's mother has the same name as her grandmother. That's a bit obvious and strange to jump into that. But yeah, other than that, it's a generally very good story, and it feels like the grand final of the McCoy era because it pays off on stuff as far back as Dragonfire. And it feels like it wraps everything up. And obviously, people talk about the Carmel Master Plan, and this was planned to that extent, but it works. And if that had gone out as the last story, it would have felt like an appropriate final for the McCoy era. They would have perfectly capstoned it, and would have been a big sort of action story to go out on. I think certainly you wouldn't not show that last if you were doing that story today. It's perfectly in line with the new series, season finals. But having said that, Survival is a thematically good final to the entire run of Doctor Who. It goes back to the London streets, like an unearthly child, and then cuts to a barren desert landscape full of skulls and primitives. So it feels like you've come full circle. I know everybody says that, but it's true, and it works as a thematic capstone to the series. And it's another very good story, and it's the best Anthony Ainley performance as a master. The whole over-the-top camp is toned down. It's a serious, restrained performance, and he's so good. It's like I always enjoyed Anthony Ainley as a master, but this is just on a whole other level to anything he'd done before, and it makes you feel so sad he didn't get to do that all the time. And of course you get the final speech, that very sweet final speech. Of course, if it had decided to show Fenwick last, you could probably have dubbed it on the walking away of a big chunk Fenwick as well, if they just played the shot for a little bit longer. But it just feels like Doctor Who is at its best again. Of the 8 stories in season 25 and 26, if not the Silver Nemesis, that would be the best 8-story run ever in Doctor Who. And 1/3 among mid-8 stories, that's a damn impressive hit rate. Of course, then the show ended in a slightly ignominious way. Also, if Sylvester McCoy had left at the end of season 26 like he wanted, it would have ended with a regeneration, which is slightly odd to think of. I think, presumably, the reason they said to him, when he said, I want to go next year, and they said to him, if you don't agree to do season 27, we won't do season 26. They only said that to him not because they ever thought they would do season 27, but because they thought we're probably going to end it next year, and we really don't want to either have to do something that means we either have to do season 27 because we've basically ended on a cliffhanger with the new Doctor being introduced, or we get all that time and effort of casting, paying the actor presumably a lot for what would be a 30-second cameo, and then not doing anything with them. So that's the end. And, well, of course, if they'd done season 27, Andrew Cartmel probably would have left as script editor during it, or maybe not even have done it at all. Everyone seems a bit confused about that. John Nathan Turner sounds like he was really serious about going this time, but he'd have probably still been there for most of it. But if you had gone, a new script editor, new producer, new companion, all finding their feet, it probably would have been less assured and not quite as good as season 26 was. So if you're going to end the show, ended with season 26 was probably, in retrospect, the right choice as it went out on an absolute high, which it might not have if it had ended the following year. But then you'll never know. That's a sad thing about it. And overall, though, the McCoy years, very good, very watchable. People sort of thinking, do I try out McCoy? It's the obvious thing to say, but start with Remembrance of Daleks, work your way forward. you will not be disappointed. And maybe go back and watch Series 24 afterwards if you fancy it as well. A lot of people don't like it. Like I said, I don't mind it. With these German box sets coming out, which do have the English language on them as well, there's no better way to get the series sensibly and without too much faffing about. Unlike with the British DVDs, where even for McCoy, I believe there's 13 different DVDs you have to get. 13 different DVDs that were released because Remembrance came out twice. That's sort of one of the less confusing runs of DVDs as well. I'll probably talk more about the DVDs and how their release could be done better in my Wilderness Years video. Which will be my next video on Doctor Who, covering Paul McGann, Dimensions in Time, Curse of Fatal Death, and everything else that happened in that 16-year period when Doctor Who was on the air. Of course, because I've only got one Paul McGann episode to watch, that video will be coming very quickly, hopefully next week. Really, I could record it tomorrow, but don't want to do too many in one go. I imagine this video is quite long when I come round to looking at the time on it. And I'm going to go off and have a nice big bowl of unlimited rice pudding now. So I will hope to see you all soon.